Kentucky-born David Wark Griffith was one of those underemployed actors. He had little interest in the movies when he showed up for work at the Edison Company, run by Edwin S. Porter. He was hired to perform in a typical melodrama, rescued from an eagle's nest. It wasn't an auspicious debut. When Griffith moved to the Biograph Company, an Edison competitor, he found there was a way to make more money working in movies.
Opportunity arises to become a director for the Biograph Company, and he says, well, okay, I'll be the director, but you have to promise me that if it doesn't work out, I can go back and get my day job as an actor for you, which is something that's dependable and easy.
When Griffith began his motion picture career, filmmaking was sometimes more about machinery than storytelling. Men like Gottfried Wilhelm Bitzer, better known as Billy, were typical early filmmakers. By the time he was 32, Bitzer had photographed 300 short films. When Griffith finally got a chance to direct, he turned to the experienced young cameraman for advice.
Bitzer actually took a piece of cardboard that had been used to keep the shirts that were newly laundered sort of in place. So he jotted down on this piece of cardboard what he thought Griffith should know about direction, and that was basically how Griffith became a director. That was Griffith's initial textbook.
In 1908, Griffith's first film as a director was The Adventures of Dolly, a typical suspenseful melodrama. He was working and learning fast. Theater programs often changed on a daily basis. That required a lot of new product.
D.W. Griffith, in his first year, made 57 or more films. This was not unusual. Other directors at other studios were making the same number of films, maybe even more.
You could make mistakes and nobody would notice because next week there'd be another picture.
Working with Bitzer, Griffith quickly recognized the dramatic advantages of shooting on location. That meant regular trips to Fort Lee, New Jersey.
Griffith was simply able to point his camera in one direction where there was a 19th century house, move it 90 degrees, and you have something that looks like a turn-of-the-century New York tenement building, 90 degrees in the other area, an open field.
During his 5 years at the Biograph Company, Griffith made more than 400 films and created a foundation upon which generations of future filmmakers would learn and build.
I think Griffith, certainly more than anybody else, had a sense that the movies could be something more than what they were. And he carried that enthusiasm along with him.
During Griffith's earliest days, movie actors were anonymous. But one Biograph heroine stood out, an experienced stage performer from Canada, Gladys Smith. Her stage name was Mary Pickford. Like Griffith, Pickford reluctantly turned to the movies for steady income. In Pickford's first film, The Lonely Villa, she plays the eldest daughter in a family menaced by robbers. Already, Griffith was transforming movie-making from static staging to dynamic storytelling, intercutting separate actions to create energy and suspense. Even though many of his Biograph movies were the stuff of 19th century melodrama, and some of his actors adopted the grand gestures of the theater, Griffith was already appreciating the difference between old-fashioned stage acting and subtler movie performance. Although they had a contentious relationship, Mary Pickford was one of the first to benefit from his tutelage. After her came 16-year-old Lillian Gish.
Lillian and Dorothy Gish were friends of Mary Pickford, and it was through Mary Pickford that they came to the Biograph Company. Griffith saw in the sisters, and especially in Lillian, an exemplar of the ideal of this innocent young woman, not unlike the roles that Mary Pickford had been playing. But Pickford was getting ready to move on, and Griffith needed a new ingenue, and Lillian Gish fit that role perfectly.
She's this frail, virginal type, but she's also very strong. People tend to forget that Griffith's heroines were always strong. They had a lot of masculine traits. They were almost feminists in lots of ways.
If acting was more sophisticated in Griffith's films, some promoters at the time also claimed he was the inventor of techniques such as the close-up and intercut action. He wasn't, but he was the first to combine them with unprecedented expressive power.
Griffith had a sense of the rhythm of film, and probably the first one to really play on that ability of film to move from place to place, from point of view to point of view, and to create a rhythm that is not possible in any other medium.
Griffith was also expanding the range of early movie storytelling with films such as The Musketeers of Pig Alley, considered an early example of the gangster film. A Corner in Wheat was an early message picture, an exposé of the impact of corrupt business practices. The greedy villain met an appropriate fate. The Battle of Elderbush Gulch was an action-packed western with the added emotional appeal of puppies, babies, and plucky children, still a staple of movies.